Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review of Star Trek Discovery Season 1, Episode 15, Will You Take My Hand? The season finale. So this video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Discovery, so I'll have to start with a spoiler warning for Discovery up to the season finale. If you haven't seen all of Season 1, Star Trek Discovery, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. Now, I'm going to have to try to be careful here. I'm going to try to speak specifically about this episode because I have a lot to say about the season overall, but I plan on doing a video next week where I cover Discovery as a whole. So I want to save a lot of my observation of the entire season for that video, because if I say it all here, then I'll just be repeating myself in that other video, which I don't want to do. So I want to stick to this episode. Now, this episode as a finale, I don't know. I guess I was expecting a lot out of the finale. Maybe this is another case where my expectations were really high. I didn't hate this episode. I thought this episode was good. I liked it. I thought it was a good, passable, good quality episode, but it wasn't spectacular. It wasn't great. It didn't save the season for me like I was hoping it would. It seemed more like, I don't know, it seems like when we're not in the mirror universe, there's a certain level of quality that's not as high as it is when we are in a mirror universe. It seems like first half of the season quality, where the first half of the season, I talked about this a lot, was good, but it wasn't great. When we got into the mirror universe, when the second half of the season started, I was like, this is amazing. It's better than just great or just good, just passable. It is spectacular. And with these last two episodes, I feel like it's lost that spectacularness. And I was hoping that this finale would keep up that spectacularness for, it's probably not a real word, but who cares, that we got with the Mirror Universe set of episodes. And I thought they would be able to do it. And I was expecting like a huge bang that the season would go out on. And well, I'll get to the ending later, but let's just say I didn't get what I expected, and it was just a passably good episode and not the extravaganza that I was hoping for. But anyway, let me get into this episode proper. Let's start with Emperor Giorgio being put in charge as captain. Now, I talked last week a bit about how I didn't really buy that reveal. We learned more about it this week, and why Cornwell did put Emperor Giorgio in charge is because they realized that they're about to be killed by the clan, so the only way to combat this is to destroy their home world. And so who better to do this than someone from the Terran universe, the Terran Empire. I still have a hard time buying that. I'm sorry. If anything, I have an even harder time buying that, because then they were meant to believe that the whole Starfleet brass okayed destroying an entire world, which I do not buy. I know they try to say we're desperate and needed to give scenes last week where Sarek was saying we're about to be destroyed, Earth is about to be destroyed. And, at the end of the episode, this allows Burnham to come up with a big speech being like, we're Starfleet, we're better than that. I mean, I'll get to that scene later, but on principle, that seems a bit, it doesn't seem like a tangible universe. And that's another thing. A lot of this episode, particularly ending, which I'll get to, reminded me a bit more of the reboots of the Abrams films than the actual Star Trek, because that's not actual Star Trek, sorry, but it's not. And part of something that made the reboots different for me is that it didn't feel like a tangible universe. It felt like things happen, like anything could happen in the universe as long as it serviced the plot. And this is not quite as bad as that, but it kind of felt along the same lines. The fact that all the Starfleet brass would be okay with, destroying an entire world, and then have their minds changed by one Starfleet commander or disgraced commander, really. And I don't necessarily, that doesn't come off as particularly realistic to me. So we start the episode with Giorgio being like, basically like the Emperor, and Saru and Burnham, excuse me, I have to feed my cat, he's being annoying. Come here, Blue, stop annoying me. Anyway, they're the only ones, Saru and Burnham are the only ones that know that that Giorgio's from the Terran Empire. But it's so obvious. I mean, the way she like barks at them and like, oh, don't call it a home world. They're not home, they're animals. I'm like, okay, she's not even trying to pretend to be from the Prime Universe. I mean, that's I don't know. That was kind of dumb. Like, that exchange between her and Saru that we got, where you're sort of having a subtext of eating. Now, they actually showed that in the preview for, when they did the after show, and they showed a preview for this episode. They showed that, a scene of that, of Saru, being like, oh, I'm going to eat you, or whatever. They had the subtext of eating. That I thought was fine, because that was in subtext. It wasn't in, like, full text. So I think she could get away with having that without actually acting like having a fucking neon sign on her forehead saying, I'm from the Mirror Universe. I mean, you gotta keep in mind that the crew of Discovery just came from the Mirror Universe, so they're very aware of the Mirror Universe, and they're aware that there was an Emperor Giorgio, so what... I mean, I don't know, maybe she doesn't care that they find out she's from the Mirror Universe, but she's supposed to be posing as Giorgio, and she did such a shitty job. And the whole thing is like, oh, we have to keep it under wraps, only certain people will know, because when Burnham tried to expose her, she's like, if you expose me, I'll put you in the brig. But then, when she calls Tilly in, the first thing she says is, oh, I liked you in the Mirror Universe when we destroyed races together. I'm like, what? I thought you were supposed to keep it under wraps. Well, I guess you could just say the excuse that it's just certain people. She only told Tilly and Tyler, and not the whole crew. But I don't know. So that part wasn't handled very well. Just have a neon sign. I'm from the Mirror Universe, tattooed on her forehead. But anyway, don't get me wrong. Like, I did like the episode, so then we get to the part where they go to the Orion outpost, and I like the concept that there's an Orion sort of, I think it was not necessarily an embassy, but it was an outpost on Kronos, because, there's a lot of different aliens on Earth, like there's a Vulcan outpost, so it does make kind of sense that Klingons would, do the same thing with other aliens, even though they're a bit more xenophobic, but, the Orions are a bunch of, like, thugs. So I did think it was interesting, too, that Mirror Giorgio was like, oh, the Orions are just a bunch of thugs in my universe. What about here? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's the same thing here. So it is interesting that there are some things that are pretty much the same in both universes. And to me, this reminded me a bit of, like, the Enterprise, the pilot for Star Trek Enterprise, where they go to a world and it's supposed to be all weird and alien and weird shit. And that I didn't care for that pilot. Some people actually liked it. I didn't. I thought that scene in particular was a bit too hand-fisted, too heavy. Oh, look, this is weird! And it was too, like, blatant, too obvious that they were trying to portray something that was like weird alien being shifty. Whereas here, I actually thought it came off really well. I was actually really impressed with how they did this. I totally bought, like, and I was really predictable though what Tilly was eating. It was whale meat, by the way. I mean, come on. She's like, oh, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to eat it anyway. It's delicious. I mean, it's so obvious it's going to be something disgusting. I thought maybe they were going to even go back to it being Kelpian, but nah, I'm glad that they didn't, because that would have been going too far. But anyway, I did like, the interactions we get in this, and the alien, of course, Giorgio, everyone from the Mirror Universe is bisexual, apparently, because, keeping with that theme, but whatever, and because Giorgio goes off and has fun with a couple of Orion slaves. I didn't know there were male Orion slaves, but that's pretty interesting. I guess it makes sense. We hadn't seen it in Trek before, but I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong. So So yeah, so that whole scene, and it was cool that the alien who gets Tilly high, that was, I don't know, like, I don't think that scene was hilarious, but it was passable. It was fun. It was a fun scene. But the actor who plays him, I believe his name is Clint Howard. He appeared in an episode of the original series as Corbinite Maneuver, I believe it was called. He was like, played this little kid who was actually, alien, is grown alien, but it looked like a little kid. And he reappeared in Deep Space Nine, and the past tense episodes has an insane person in the Sanctuary Districts in the year 2025. So it was interesting. We see him here again in Discovery. So he's got 3 Star Trek series now under his belt. So original series, Deep Space Nine, and Discovery. So a bunch of different eras, and I like that. It was a cool little cameo too. I like. His character was, he was trying to steal the thing from Tilly. He got her really stoned, so that he could. So yeah, I mean, I like that. That was kind of funny. So I like that whole Orion sequence. I actually thought was interesting and played out well. I did think the episode, like, this didn't feel like a finale. Like, maybe. Again, it's my false expectations. I was expecting like a typical like Star Trek finale, or like other shows like Lost or whatever will have a huge spectacle. And this episode was actually it moved, especially at this point when after they went to the Orions and they were going to destroy the thing. It was really slow pace. We got a lot of like dialogue scenes, which I didn't think were that strong character buildings. I did like some of the things between Burnham and Tyler, which I'll get to shortly. But for the most part, I thought it moved a bit slowly. But then, they find out what the actual plan is. I thought that's when it got kind of suspenseful, when Georgiou knocked out Tilly and stole the device and went to, go blow up the planet. And okay, so now let me get this scene with Burnham standing up to Cornwell. I did like, as I said, I didn't like the build up to this. It seemed kind of contrived and forced. And it's a way for Discovery writers to be like, look, we're being like Star Trek because they're standing up for us. But I don't know. And how come Cornwell's willing to blow up a whole planet, but when Lorca tries to do something like that, they're not even as bad? He's from the Mirror Universe, and yet we have Prime Universe people acting the same way, but whatever. Anyway, I did like this scene, though, because I think this built off of, like, in episode 13, where Saru gave that amazing speech to the Discovery crew, the bridge, and you got that sense, that feeling that they were now, like, a unit, a family unit, and they weren't really that way under Lorca, and they sort of grew and learned to grow together from their experiences, mainly their experiences in the Mirror Universe where they're fighting for their lives, and going back from the Mirror Universe to be in the middle of an unwinnable war. So I did like that, how they were all stood up and sort of joined unison with Burnham and Saru and standing up to Cornwell. So I thought that was really great. And also, I think this was, I loved, if there's one, and I'll talk about this more in my season 1 review, but there's one thing that I think this season did right, was the Burnham's character journey, her character arc. And this scene in particular, it's a really awesome, I don't know if you call it conclusion, maybe climax is the better word. It's a really awesome climax to her character journey in season 1, where she realizes, like, look, I was wrong to do what I did, because the means don't justify the ends, and we need to stand up for Starfleet principles and the Federation principles no matter what. And so she's able to come up with another plan to stop the war that doesn't involve genocide. It doesn't involve blowing up their entire home world, which would be unacceptable and of course wouldn't fit into canon. But so I did like that. I think that was a great And it totally brought, like, in her speech, her realization, and you can see her character journey throughout the season of her coming to these conclusions. Like, we get hints at it when she's in the mirror universe and she refuses to kill Lorca, for example, and stuff like that. The journey leads her to this conclusion to where she finally learns what it really means to stand up for Federation principles, and she knows this even more than the Starfleet brass. Again, I find it hard to believe the entire Starfleet brass, but whatever. Forgive that for the second. I think that's a great conclusion to her character story, so I did really love this scene. So the final solution they come up with, I think this is a bit iffy. Now, I guess I should talk a bit about how they didn't change the timeline. This was an alternate universe, so the universe, this time, what the events that happened in these past 2 episodes, that those Klingons were like destroying 30% of the Federation and destroyed certain worlds, and they destroyed an outpost that was right next to Earth and are on their way to Earth. They're trying to say that fits into actual canon. Now, first off, I'm not disappointed. I'm not sour that they didn't change the timeline. I still say I would have preferred that, honestly. Some people were against hitting the reset button. It worked in yesterday's Enterprise. It worked in Year in Hell. I think it would have worked here as well. But that being said, I don't care that they didn't do it. Well, I wouldn't say I don't care. Like, I still think it would have been better. But I'm not going to say, oh, this sucks because they didn't do it. I think it's fine. I'm not that upset about how this doesn't fit into canon, but it doesn't really. But I'm not like, this isn't Star Trek sort of, kind of thing, which other people complain about, every little bitty complaint about canon, because as I point out on a regular basis, every single one of the 5 Star Trek series and all the other stuff, all the movies, everything, they all have canon violations. They all go against continuity. So the fact that this is kind of, there's a lot of the things I point out, you got the people be like, well, actually, blah, 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 this could fit, and they come up with really convoluted reasons of why this canon violations actually isn't when really it is. But here, you don't have to come up with that convoluted of excuse to sort of fit. You can say, well, they didn't actually, maybe this stuff did get destroyed, it just didn't mention that this was happening because we only saw Pike in 1 episode or whatever. Fine, okay, whatever. As I said, it doesn't actually bother me that much. I'm okay with them, not changing the timeline, but I still think, just from a storytelling perspective, I thought that would have been better. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. I actually think it's fine that they found that Burnham stuck up for Federation principles, and that was what they were winning to. But I don't know, just the reason why, and I think I need to explain myself, because the reason why is because there seemed to need to be a reason of why Discovery came back from the mirror universe 9 months in the future. It seems, I don't know, it seems kind of unnecessary, and I don't know, I'll get more on this in my overall Season 1 review. But anyway, so the solution is to have L'Rell be the leader of the Klingon Empire and give her the device and the means to destroy the entire planet. Now, what would happen if one of these 24 houses, apparently, what if one of them, or one or more of them, called her bluff? And be like, oh yeah, well, go ahead and destroy Kronos then. Would she have? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if she had, of course, that would violate canon, so that's why it didn't happen. But it seems like, someone would have, honestly. And I don't know. Like, and why do they trust, just because they give her power to unite all the clans, why is it necessarily follow that she would stop the war against the Federation? Now, granted, they say, look, we have the ability to destroy your homeworld, but we're not going to do that because we're better than you. Or we're not better than you, but because we're better than that, I should say. So that could change her opinion on the Federation. You say that she's honorable, so she would honor that. I don't think the show's earned that with her character journey. We didn't get enough of her character journey that would seem like to justify this ending. That she's like the one who needs, like, we're supposed to feel like, she's the Klingon leader now. This is awesome. She's gonna change her Klingon Empire, and that's why she stops the war. I don't think the show earned that. So that's why I wasn't that big on this solution. Personally, I would have preferred time travel, but, whatever, fine. I just don't think they earned this ending the way that they said that they would. But let me get now into another thing I did really like about this episode, and that is the Burnham and Tyler conclusion to their relationship. And I think it makes a bit more sense now, or at least story-wise, who Tyler is, that he's sort of an amalgamation of Valk and Tyler. I still don't get the technical specifics about it, like whose body did they graft the bodies together. I don't really get that, but I do get that it's sort of Tyler in control, but he's still influenced by, and he has the memory of Vogue, and so he's still influenced by Vok and his personality, even though Tyler's still a dominant personality. I think it actually makes a lot of sense that he's going back to the Klingons, and I think the way he describes it is sort of perfect. Is like Jojo's right. I'm no use to the Federation or the Klingons, but I could be used to both. So he goes with Rel to bridge it. And you could say that's why they're not going to attack. That's why they end the war and not going to attack in the future, because Tyler is there by her side to remind her that the Federation spared them, and to point out all the good in the Federation, how T'Kuvma's xenophobic way of thinking isn't necessarily the way to go. So I did enjoy that, and I like the relationship, the way that they handled it with Tyler and Burnham, because where they ended it last week, Burnham's like, I want, fuck you. I want nothing to do with you. But she warmed up to him, and I like how she opened up about the story about her their parents being killed by Klingons. That was really intense, and I think it's actually interesting that we're getting this important backstory information in the finale, and I think that's actually really great. I like the way how they slowly disseminate, because we knew that her parents were killed by the Klingons, but we didn't know the details, and I think that makes a huge difference in how that could affect their lives, and how the Klingons just sitting there laughing after they killed them, and how that could brew a hatred in her. And I love her reaction, saying that she learned, she was like, she did learn to love a Klingon. I mean, sort of, because she loved Tyler, and he wasn't really Klingon. It was kind of iffy on that, but still, is a huge difference, and she was able to see the Klingon culture and going on that planet as, a culture that deserves to exist, and she could see how horribly wrong it was to completely wipe it out, even if it was to save their own culture. So I really like that. I thought that was really powerful, and I think their parting, they're saying goodbye, and their kiss, I totally bought. I think it was the perfect end to a relationship that really had no, like, if Tyler stayed with the Federation, he probably would have been arrested or whatever, or at the very least wouldn't serve in Starfleet anymore. And so their relationship, Burnham and Tyler's, had no future whatsoever. So I do think that was a very fitting ending for him going off, and I think it was a very good way to end their relationship journey. So let me get to this whole awards ceremony back on Earth. This is the part where that reminded me a lot of the reboots. Granted, they didn't make Tilly a captain like they made Kirk. I was almost expecting them. Oh, Tilly, great job! Let's give you a ship to command, like they do with Kirk and the fucking. Oh God, don't get me started on that. But it still had the same feel of it. The way they're all gathered and they were cheering and listening to Burnham give the speech, and they give everyone medals. Like, Saru, you did a great job. It had that feeling of the end of Star Wars: A New Hope, where after they destroyed Death Star, they're all getting medals. There's one thing I always held against that movie. It felt very cheesy. That was like 1977, so it felt very almost like a cartoonish, like oh, let's give you a medal. Oh, everything's awesome. And it had that, and that's what the reboots that I didn't like. And of course, making fucking a cadet captain. Just, no, don't get me started. And it had that same feel. It was a bit too cheesy, if you know what I mean. It's a bit too over the top. Like, I do buy that they reinstated Burnham, because after what she just did, she saved the whole Federation, and she did it by sticking true to the principles. But I completely buy that they reinstated her commission, because I think they were being too harsh on her in the first place. In fact, I didn't buy how harsh they were being on her, to be frank. So the fact they reinstated her, I totally buy. It was just that having that whole awards ceremony, and you find out the voiceover we've been getting with Burnham throughout the whole episode is actually her talking at the awards ceremony. That's a bit cheesy. I'm sorry, but I thought that was a bit cheesy. But speaking of cheesy, let me get to this final ending, which, my God, like, I don't know. I haven't watched any videos on this episode yet. I haven't heard anyone else's opinion. But, my God, man, they were going a bit overboard with the fan service there. I mean, come on. Here, fans, let me jerk you off. Here's the Enterprise. Here's the original series music. Come on. I was expecting something story-wise, something that would be awesome to end the season. Something like, I don't know, it doesn't have to involve time travel. It could involve something else. But something that really made me go, wow. What an amazing ending to a season that totally makes this season so much better. Something story-wise that would come out of left field and be like, wow, that is amazing. That makes everything make much more sense. But instead it's like, oh, here's the Enterprise. Oh, come the fuck on. I was literally rolling my eyes at that. And what obvious fan service, because I complained like throughout my Discovery views whenever they did that with Enterprise, like, Amanda, see, that's Spock's mother, get it, we're mentioning Amanda, get it, or Mirror Universe, he's looking in the mirror, there's a mirror. This is the worst example of that. I think we don't actually, and alright, let me explain this. I don't mind that we see the Enterprise. I mind that they make it like it's the big conclusion to the whole season. That they make such a huge deal out of it. And of course, when they had this thing where the registry was coming up from the other ship that was in distress, and of course they wouldn't mention outright at first what the ship it was, and the registry was coming up as NCC-17. Oh, come on, it's gonna say 01. I knew, like, just the whole. Why even have that registry thing pop up if it wasn't going to be the Enterprise? And then this just made such a big fucking deal. And they ended with the original series music. Oh my God. I hated that. I'm sorry. But I do not need this kind of fan service hand job. I'd rather, much rather, have great storytelling. I'd rather have an ending that is like, wow, that is an amazing story. That's good for the characters, not some Star Trek reference hand job. I mean, those, as I said, in small doses they're fine. Like, I wouldn't mind if we saw, like, the Enterprise introduced in some other context, but not like the big finale. This is the big conclusion to the season. Now, I don't know if Season 2 is going to start and just blow past this and pretend it doesn't exist. Although in the after show, you get the impression they said, "Oh, we're going to explain why Spock never talks about Burnham. You want to know? People complaining that. Well, we're going to explain it." Please don't. I don't want to see another actor play Spock and another actor play Pike. But keep in mind, this is 10 years before the original series, so Spock and Pike would be the only characters we're familiar with, and of course some of the other characters in the cage, if they do number 1, and that old doctor guy, and some of those other people who are in the cage. But remember, this is 10 years before Kirk's time, so Kirk and McCoy and Scotty and people like that won't be on the Enterprise. This is 10 years before that, so it'd be like, the people who were on it during the cage. I don't know. I guess are they gonna have the actors from the reboot movies play them? Have Silo from Heroes and Nowhere Man. No one's gonna get that reference, but Nowhere Man, who played Pike in the reboots, Greenwood, whatever his name is. Are they gonna be in it, or are they gonna cast new actors? Like, either way would annoy me, to be perfectly honest. Do we need to recast them again? I don't know. Maybe I'm being a sourpuss on this, and they're probably gonna try to feed into the whole Pike thing. Why the Enterprise in distress? They'll probably drop lots of reference. Well, we just came back from Telos 4, where Pike was held captive in a menagerie. Knowing Discovery, that's what they're gonna fucking do. I just don't need that. I don't want it. I'd rather have original stories. I wanted something more character based, more story based than this bullshit. But I don't know. So I haven't heard what anyone else said. So maybe everyone out there disagrees with me, and they're all giving me thumbs down now because they think I'm being a sourpuss or whatever. But whatever. Anyway, my rating for Will You Take My Hand out of 10 is a 7. Very good. It's a very good episode. Very good. Not extremely good. It's not excellent. It's not the best. But it's very good. It's, as I said, the character journey for Burnham, I loved that she was the one that stuck up for Starfleet principles, and I love the whole season was building to her coming to this conclusion. I think that was played out nicely. I love the conclusion to her relationship with Tyler and Tyler's own inner struggle and him coming to terms with that. I thought that was done amazingly well. I loved the scene, the Orion Outpost, and the scenes there. These are fascinating, entertaining. Love the way that played out. Didn't buy that that they put Giorgio in charge of the Discovery. That was fake. I didn't buy that the brass would agree to destroy Kronos in the first place, and that awards ceremony was kind of cheesy, and I don't need a freaking hand job of fan service. Sorry, I don't need it. Anyway, that is it for my review of the Star Trek Discovery season finale, but it is not the end of my coverage of Star Trek Discovery. As I mentioned, I will be doing a overall season 1 review on my channel next week, but before that, in fact, probably from your perspective watching this video now, tomorrow, Tuesday night in the US at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be doing a live discussion video with my brother, Apkin Tomko. We're going to get all into the Season 1 in its entirety. We'll probably focus more in the second half because we already did one for the first half. But yeah, we're going to talk about all of Season 1. I know we have very, very different takes, but I don't think we disagree as much as you might think we do. I think we're pretty much on the same page. But anyway, we're going to get all into Season 1 of Discovery in our discussion, which you can find on my channel. As I said, Tuesday 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US. For me, would be Wednesday at 4 p.m. Wednesday in New Zealand for me. Anyway, I'll put the link in the description below so you can go to that, and whatever time zone you're in, it will come up with your time. Anyway, be sure to check us out for that. Also check out my channel as I continue to do mini Star Trek videos, also covering other shows like Game of Thrones, The Expanse, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all that. Thanks a lot for watching.